Dandadan is awesome. Meet Okarun. He's a socially awkward loner with no friends, but above all, he is a staunch believer in the extraterrestrial, aliens and cryptids. By comparison, Momo Ayase is an attractive and sociable extrovert. She's a staunch believer in the paranormal, ghosts and monsters. When one day these two start arguing about whose belief is right or wrong, they decide to challenge each other to visit locations where there have been sightings of ghosts or aliens, to convince the other their belief is real. However, they discover that both aliens and ghosts are real. As aliens with mechanical schlongs attempt to mate with Momo, she awakens to her psychic powers and gives them a slogging. As Okarun is about to be attacked by an evil spirit, he instead finds himself possessed by a dick-stealing granny ghost that makes his junk disappear and gives him power, as well as a lust for chomping off other people's dicks. This is the first chapter of Dandadan. From there on out, we go on a wild quest to retrieve Okarun's genitalia, as the main characters are forced to deal with occult and alien threats such as giant crabs, Godzilla, Nessie, and most horrifying of all, overbearing landlords. Dandadan is a wild ride from start to finish. We are gradually introduced to crazier and crazier shit, as well as a wider roster of lovable characters. The characters are the type of distinct characters that could really only work inside of a manga. Dandadan's characters are not created with realism in mind, but rather a level of unparalleled eccentricity. When characters talk, all text bubbles are accommodated with the chibi-like facial expression from the character. All dialogue and characterizations is done with a sense of over-the-top expressiveness, with characters yelling and going crazy or being ridiculously goofy. There's almost no in-between. And it works. You better get used to this facial expression because you're going to be seeing a lot of it. You get used to the style of drawing and writing in this manga, and you get lost in the existence of these nonsensical characters who seem to have a muck for brains. The eccentricity of the characters almost reminds me of Tatsuki Fujimoto's works, which is why I wasn't surprised to find out that this mangaka, Yukinobu Tatsu, was a drawing assistant for Tatsuki Fujimoto. Speaking of drawing, let's talk about the art in this manga. The art looks phenomenal. While the story clearly has influences from Tatsuki Fujimoto, the art reminds me more of Yusuke Murata's works. With heavily simulated motion blur from the line art, a large amount of highly detailed double-page spreads, and strong use of perspective to emphasize scale. However, Dandadan also has a very unique style to it, specifically its character designs. Characters are one of two categories in this manga. They are either extra hot fuckboys, but, actually super sweetie, cutie on the inside, or they're uglier than any of the bastards in your favorite hentai. Additionally, the monsters in Dandadan all have super unique and creepy designs. Some serious artistic license was taken in creating such uncanny designs for the monsters, and it pays off in spades. The fights are incredible too. There's such a nice flow of action from page to page, and it's not just the art that makes the fights look incredible, they're also just super creative fights. What about a fight where all the solid material in your school is turned into water and you have to fight a mantis shrimp alien swimming in the walls? Or what about a race to the death with a giant crab? Everything about this manga is about being as wild as possible, from the fights to the dialogue to the characters. It's all trying to be over the top. Now, I do really like this manga. The characters are super likable and I can really get behind the interpersonal relationships between them all. The premise keeps surprising me with new batshit crazy stuff to ogle at. But this manga isn't for everyone. This manga is batshit crazy, and that's kind of the whole point of it. But some people will be turned away by it because of this. There is a lack of overall consistency to the lore in this world. We know aliens exist, and we know ghosts exist, and that's pretty much it. There isn't really rhyme or reason to the threats in the world of Dandadan. They appear out of nowhere, they wreak crazy havoc because of the most random reason the mangaka could think of, before the main characters find some way to beat it against all odds. I think the thing that hurts this manga the most is the lack of a main antagonist or an overarching goal. That is not counting finding Okarun's testicles, of course. The progression of the manga involves the main characters having a fight, going about their lives for all about 2 seconds before a new threat appears right in front of them, and then fighting it again. That's not to say the manga is all fighting. There is a surprisingly large amount of dialogue and quite a heavy focus on the relationships between these characters. And the focus on interpersonal relationships is some of the strongest parts of this manga, as it keeps the monster of the week formula from getting stale and too formulaic. But I do find it crazy that ghosts and aliens constantly appear right in front of these main characters non-stop, but not at all in front of anyone else on the planet, and nor in front of any of the main characters prior to the start of this manga. Dandadan is wild and crazy. It's unique, bold and different, and also not for everyone. It lacks overall narrative focus, but makes up for it with its engaging moment-to-moment action and dialogue. I was completely hooked on this manga, and I can't wait for more. And maybe you should check it out too.
When I'm looking in your face,